Ladies and gentlemen, the following podcast is scheduled for 1 hour. First, making his way to the studio from Vancouver, British Columbia, weighing in at 50 loaded poutines, your host, it's Oops. There we go. Screwed that up. Anyways, gonna keep going. Making his way down the aisle from Atlanta, Georgia, weighing in at 85 Chicago deep dish pizzas, we have Jamal.
Yeet. What's happening, everybody?
What's going on, Jamal? Thank you for joining us today. And
Absolutely.
coming down the aisle from Lake Goodwin, Washington, weighing in at 300 McRibs, one of our favorite regulars, it's Jason. What's going on, Jason?
How you doing, guys?
Good, man. Good.
And finally, their final tag team partner from Carlinville, Illinois, weighing in at 97 fully loaded foot-long hot dogs, we have Jeff.
Hey, everybody. How we doing? Good to see you.
Nice seeing everybody. It's the holiday season, so I figured we'd give people a gift. As wrestling fans, especially on a certain vacation, we run into a lot of people that have no idea what really catches our attention for wrestling. So we're getting the 12 crisp matches. These are matches that we all figure individually, and I am sure we will get a consensus on this, or maybe a debate, which is always welcome, of things we would show a non-fan to go, this is why I like this, or this is sort of what happens when. As we've discussed many times before, we have AEW. We're all big AEW fans. It's like the charcuterie board of professional wrestling. There are so many different styles based out of so many different regions. You have the European style, the Japanese style. We have the Lucha Libre style, of course. And then throughout the States and Canada, there are little pockets of slightly different styles of the North American style that tend to borrow from everything else. So what I figured is we're going to need practice for this because we're going to run into new people on this boat every year, and they're going to be like, I'm here because my boyfriend's a fan. I don't understand it. And it's like, well, you know what? Go check this one out, and here's why. So I'm going to kick this off with our first confirmed guest. Jeff, what do you have on your list? Give us one.
Okay. So I was trying to put some thought into this because I was kind of trying to cater to what type of person they might be, or, maybe something I could get a read off of them when I met them or something, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you got somebody who might be into more extreme type stuff, maybe I could tell by their music choice or, some different things, and I might be able to assume that or make an assumption. I was thinking something like, for a female, maybe like Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker. Something like that, from that unsanctioned match, 2021, I think it was.
Yeah, I believe so. That was really early in the AEW Dynamite. Yeah, that was because Britt was riding high. She had come back from that injury. Yeah, Thunder Rosa.
And you didn't need a whole lot of storyline, to kind of get into that match. The violence and the blood and different stuff like that. That would be for a gal I would think might be a little bit more hardcore-ish. Maybe likes that horror genre movies and stuff like that. Maybe that's something, I could present to her that might maybe get her into it a little bit.
I mean, that's a good call. I mean, honestly, I thought we'd get into some of the women's matches. I didn't think we were going to start off with one, but women's wrestling is right up there these days. It's as flawed as men's wrestling is, and which is really saying something because we're not just bra and panties matches, but there are a place for those. Guys, what do you think about that choice? Jamal, Jason?
I like it. I definitely like it. But Jeff brings up a good point because, especially it depends on if it's a female. Sometimes you might tend to show a female's match before like a male's match, more likely. So, but yeah, I like that though.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought maybe that'd be the way to start, so we wouldn't have like somebody going, shit, let me cross that off my list, or something along those lines. So
Yeah, and I'm sure, and this way, when I set this up, I'm like, just have a list. We'll run through it. We'll find 12. It should be about right for the time frame we're aiming at, and there's going to be overlap because I mean, there are greats, and the greats are great for a reason. You know what I mean? All right, Jason, you were the next one to into this dog pile. What do you got for us, buddy?
I mean, I can't. It's hard to just pick one from this list that I made. I came up growing up in the Northeast. I've been a fan for, I don't know, 44, 45 years. Um, I've seen a lot. I tend to go old school, but I have a lot of matches that kind of what we talked about, the car crashes, the classics, the emotion. I mean, there's so much that can go into a great match. But I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, Hogan versus Rock at WrestleMania 18, that emotion, I don't know if that could be touched.
You know what? I was in the building for that. No, that was wild.
Nice.
It's not a match that I think from being, if you're in the building, I think you understand what a lot of pundits say, a lot of insiders say, where if you shut the sound off, that match sucks. And so like I think that tend to me, but that was probably the biggest crowd reaction I had seen to a match. And I had been at WrestleMania 17 the year before, and that dwarfed the Austin reaction at WrestleMania 17. That was wild, seeing the reaction for Hulk Hogan all day long around the Toronto Sky Dome. It was just a massive support movement for the Hulkster. And they say they didn't see it coming, but I mean, stick your head out the door and you would have seen it coming. Like literally all you had to do is stick your head out the door of the Sky Dome and go, guys, we may want to rethink this. Jeff, Jamal, thoughts on this one?
I'll go ahead. Well, obviously, I just crossed that one off my list. That was one I had. And the reason I think it's great too, besides what you guys have already pointed out, is that's a good one to bring up in this day and age for a lot of reasons. Depending on the age of the person, they're going to know who The Rock and they're going to know who Hogan are, because I know tons of people that you could bring up Hulk Hogan, The Rock, a couple of these people that have crossed over into these different avenues of entertainment. So yeah, I definitely think that one's up there.
Yeah, I think it makes it easier when you got big names like Rock, Hogan, Austin, Cena. Like when they cross mainstream, I think people are like, "Oh yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, sure, I'll give it a watch just to check it out."
Mm-hmm. The star power factor is definitely a thing. It's like, yeah, I mean, Hulk Hogan hasn't actively wrestled in 15 years now, something like that. And
Yeah.
he's still, if you put a gray oval up anywhere with that Fu Manchu, everybody knows who it is, right? All right, Jamal, what do you got on your list?
All right, first, so it's like I said before, like for me, I go with car crashes. I'm not gonna lie, my list is mostly car crashes because, like car crashes, people tend to stop and look. You can't help it. So, but first one that comes to mind for me, Undertaker, Mankind, Hell in a Cell.
Ooh, the Notorious. Yeah.
Like that is a layup just for me. It's like, oh, you're interested? Okay, watch this. And every time I show somebody that, they're just like, was that planned to throw him off a 20-foot cage? Was that planned? Like he died.
Yeah.
He just got right back up. So yeah, that's one I definitely show people, because after that they're just like, what did I just watch? I thought this was all fake.
Well, I mean, I definitely have one of those on my list that we'll get to. Yeah, Jason, Jeff, what do you think about the Hell in the Cell?
Yeah, I mean, pure spectacle, storytelling, car crash, viciousness, people getting knocked out. I mean, outside people running in, helping out. Mankind getting stretchered out, then saying, "Hey, no, I want back in." Going back on the. I mean, the dramatics of that match. I don't know if that could be touched.
Yeah, and that's another one I just crossed off my list. And then the the smile with the tooth and those types of things. You can't. Yeah, and you didn't need to see anything else before that match. You could literally watch that match as a standalone.
Yeah. And what
So
people forget is that was on mid-show. That wasn't the last match.
no, it wasn't main event.
And especially knowing what we know now. I mean, it is well documented by Mick, the total that took on his body, the absolute destruction. This was planned coming off the top of the cell, going through the cell was not. The fact that the Undertaker's like, you're gonna make me climb the cell with a broken foot. And then he dropped his big 300-pound ass off the top of it into the ring.
Yeah.
And then there's tacks, and then there's chairs, and then there's poor Terry Funk getting choke slammed out of his shoes. Yeah, that's an infamous matchup, 100%. All right, so I'm going to go to my list.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, if you look at Mick Foley's body of work, all the abuse and the punishment that he's taken, I mean, that match encapsulates everything. And he shied away from talking about that match because that's what everybody wanted to just talk about. That's what he was known for falling off the Hell in a Cell. So, I mean, again, a moment captured in time, just, classic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's notorious. I don't know if there's a more notorious match in the history of pro wrestling at this point. That's really all you can say about it. All right, so for mine, I'm going to stick with the car crash matches. I was going to save this one for later. It's a little bit lesser known, but it was as real as it got. When the Public Enemy showed up in WWE, were very disrespectful and changed the finish of this match on their way out the curtain against the APA. And even Gerald Briscoe looked at Bradshaw and Ron Simmons and went, sort it out. And they did. I don't believe there was an actual bell in this match. If you look at the YouTube clips, it's only about 4 minutes long, but these two guys came in, they had, whatever going for them in WCW and ECW. They had a following. They basically thought their shit didn't stink, pulled the punk cards of two guys that are unfuckwithable and got sorted out on live TV. Go find this on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It's 4 minutes long. And there's a point in this where even the commentary team is like,
whoa,
what the hell? And they started, and they stopped. They went off script too. It's like, this is just a beating. And when you know how this match went down, and JBL has been filling in with Bruce Pritchard on Something to Wrestle With, and this came up on the show a couple weeks ago, and he's like, we just beat the shit out of him. Like, we were not taking that. Briscoe's like, deal with it. So we dealt with it. And it's just like, the boys police the boys, right? Mm-hmm. And that's like, so if somebody wants to use the F word, yeah, you can absolutely use the Hell in the Cell and go, that was planned, that wasn't. And then you can turn around and go, and here's 4 minutes of what happens if you fuck around coming through the curtain and find out. Like, that was an unbelievable beating. Just a reminder for everybody out there listening, I see our numbers have been dancing. Tony is with us. He's looking at the Star Power channel. I mean, Dirty Dick Rick. Thanks for tuning in, my friend. And always, you can catch him on Sabu Speaks. I believe that's over on Twitch. So check out his show as well. We love supporting everybody else's stuff.
Tuesday, 9 Eastern.
That's right. Tuesdays, 9 Eastern. And, the TDS show tends to run up there a little bit before that. So you can check out Taryn and Dez on TDS as well. Support your friends. If they're doing a podcast, tune in, share it, download it. And he's a helicopter riding, and we're just going to leave it at that. And, if they open a restaurant, go do that too. Whatever your friends are doing, help them out. All right. I'm just going to flip back to this thing here. All right. Back to you, Jeff. What are we talking here?
All right. I'm going to go a little bit away from some big and then some car crash. And I'm going to go with a kind of fun, entertaining type thing, maybe get more of kids or some adventurous type people. And I'm going to do the Will Ospreay versus Ricochet from, what was it, Best of the Super Juniors 2016, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one I'm going to use with the Superman, or the double superhero pose and all that stuff. I just think that would catch a lot of people's interest, especially maybe, some kids or, some stuff like that. So I'm going to use that one as my next one.
Yeah, and Osprey and Ricochet, and a lot of people say they're just going at it, and there's no story to it in AEW. It's like, no, AEW isn't afraid to pull from other stuff, and these two are just. This is young. I mean, this is 8 years ago, and these guys are still at the top of their game. I'm gonna have to look that one up because I've never seen it. So
it's just more for the fun value of it than it is as being, super technical or anything else. I mean, they just went and showcased what they could do.
Yeah,
so, it was fun.
And that's perfect. That's exactly it. That's what we were talking about at the top of the show. Is there's all sorts of different versions of professional wrestling. What I like and what I prefer may not be the same as anybody else, which is why this is a great way to do it with 4 different views. Guys, what do you think? Have you guys seen this?
I've seen highlights. You have to either really, really look for it on the internet or subscribe to New Japan to find it. But yeah, I think very highly of both guys for sure. They're great, and they've only gotten better since then. It's just amazing to go back and see the size difference. They look so small now, but then you can see over the years they just packed on, more muscle, and they've grown more experience. So, but yeah, I think very highly of those two.
Jason?
Yeah, I mean, a casual fan who might not know much about wrestling say, hey, wrestlers, they're not athletes. It's like, hey, just put this match on and, I'll prove you wrong. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's I can't add anything extra to that. And if you look at Will's old career, previous companies, is learning curve and all that stuff, he's got some pretty rad stuff with Swerve Strickland from back in the day as well. And Swerve is basically unrecognizable. He had that Booker T glow up, I like to say. It just had stuff going on and blossomed. He just got his chance and he ran with it. All right, Jason, what you hitting us with next, buddy?
Austin versus Bret Hart, WrestleMania 13. You have Austin, who's a rising star, and this match just, even in a losing effort, just made him a superstar. The turn, the dramatics, making Austin the face and Bret the heel, where Austin came in the match as a heel and Bret Hart was the face. I mean, it's a masterclass in a wrestling match, in dramatics, in a double turn. The picture of Austin with his face when he was in a sharpshooter, and his face, the camera, and the blood running down. I mean,
well, they put that on a T-shirt too.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, a moment in time.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, I was never a huge Austin fan in his career because I just kept slamming him against guys I was a bigger fan of, like Bret Hart. So it kind of tainted me for him. But I mean, it's Bret. Have a bad match with Bret. I mean, only one guy did it, and he knocked him completely out of life, basically. Jeff, Jamal, comments on this one?
No, I'm good with that one.
Well, I'm gonna just cross that off mine.
That's what I mean. That's why I picked 20 something, just in case.
When I had this sort of thought as I was sitting there at work, I'm like, ooh, that could be difficult. And I just started punching in. I'm like, oh no, I have 20 matches. And so I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think if I throw this out, we should have no problem covering this, even with overlap. All right, Jamal, you're next up.
All right, so I'm gonna dip out of the car crashes a little bit because, like I said, I got several on here though. Gonna go a little more recent. We're gonna go AEW this time. So this is gonna be a weird one, but I picked this one because it was fun match. It was more entertainment, kind of comedy based. I'm gonna go with Double or Nothing 2020. start of the pandemic, the first ever stadium stampede, Inner Circle versus the Elite.
Oh,
Yeah.
good
Obviously,
one.
obviously, it's a weird time for all of us. We were all stuck at home. But I'd say even for like a casual fan, I wouldn't be afraid to turn this on because I would just like to show people like, hey, like obviously other sports and other shows and everything else is canceled. But the one thing that kept going was wrestling for both companies. They just kept going every week. And it was a fun watch. They were very creative in the football stadium with the ring in the middle, Hangman coming down, horse, and Jericho, calling the flag and this and that, and Hangman is just doing cowboy shit, just random stuff. So,
Yeah.
Sammy
Is,
getting hit
is
with the
that
golf cart. It was fun.
was
Yeah.
that the one where Nick did the Northern Lights sequence allegedly all the way
Yeah,
across
it
the
just
football
kept
field?
going to all the way to the touch to the goal.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was just kept going. That was another reason it was just nonstop, just laughing. It's like, wait, is he still going? Like, wait, what? And the story behind it was just so funny because they literally had to film it all throughout the night, and then they just got the moment when Kenny got the one wing angel right before the sun came up. So they were like on a tight schedule trying to tape that match. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it turned out very well, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I remember going back to watch that one. For whatever reason, I didn't order that pay-per-view, but that was a high mark in a era where we had a lot of cinematic matches coming at us.
Mhm.
That was really a high watermark. The Stadium Stampede is an interesting match because you can do so much different stuff, blend it all in there. And it's not the typical clusterfuck multi-man match. You think a 5-on-5, those are never good. They're never
Yeah.
good. There's too much going on, but you have all this space and you have the ability to cut and go from the field where Nick's on the 10-yard line doing the suplexes to go up to the bar where Hangman's about to get into a bar fight, to over where Jericho's driving the golf cart against Matt Hardy or whatever, or no, it was Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy with the golf cart.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was definitely cannot fault that match whatsoever. It probably saved that pay-per-view, really, for what a lot of
Yeah.
people would say. All right, so I'm going to go to a match that broke my heart last year. This match, going back to ECW, the almost 2-year reign of Rob Van Dam. He had one particular nemesis in Jerry Lynn. They'd gone back and forth over that title. Rob clearly hadn't dropped it. Hardcore Heaven 99. This is the match where it started a little slow. It started with some chain wrestling, which was really cool to see because you think ECW, that's not it. But this match did a really good job of highlighting chain wrestling, highlighting storytelling, highlighting hardcore, highlighting all the various little bits. And, gets into a little showboaty stuff. Both guys looked like they were in a fight because Rob caught Jerry with an elbow, or Jerry caught Rob with an elbow, split him open. You can definitely see that was a hard way. But this is also the one where Jerry Lynn got kicked in the chest off the top rope and appeared to be knocked senseless on the floor. And then, went dead weight in Rob's arms as he was trying to get him back in the ring. Rob hopped in, was stalling. And here's where it broke my heart. And I know Jason, you've probably heard this story before, Jeff too, because I've said it a few times on the podcast. Last year on the cruise, I was talking to Jerry Lynn. I said, I don't know how you did that match. And he goes, brother, that was work. What? He goes, I
Good.
didn't hit the concrete with my head. I worked it. No, Tony, who was knocked clean out, heard it from Jerry himself, broke my fucking heart, because for years I had believed that Jerry Lynn was one of the toughest human beings and underrated wrestlers alive. Turns out I was 100% correct, but he is also one of the greatest sellers there has been.
Yeah.
Because he made everybody believe. That's a Ricky Morton level sell job. And our frequent guest Alex was standing right with me when it happened. And Alex says it was a Simpsons moment. He could pinpoint the frame where my heart broke.
Damn.
and they showcased so much stuff in that. You know, they were doing the ECW stuff where, yeah, they're in the crowd. Yeah, Rob's got the chair out. They're setting up tables. But one of the things was they set up a table and then it was counter after counter and they get away from it. And then like 5 or 6 minutes later, Jerry gets thrown backwards over the ropes when they're looking at one table and you forgot the other one was set up and he went through that instead. And it was absolutely fantastic. Cannot recommend it enough. Thoughts?
I was laughing at comments.
Yeah, we got Tony's in there. Yeah, the nose was real. They both looked like they were broken up. The nose was real. The knockout was not. But yeah, and like Jim Ross saying, like, if you're going to do this stuff, you don't look like you're in a fight at the end of the match. These guys looked like they were in a fight.
Yeah,
And
I mean, that was one I had to cross that one off. I had that option between him and Jerry Lynn, and then I had, if not, RVD versus Sabu. So I did have a couple of those because I tried to, pick some different stuff. So I agree. This is definitely a good one to show to a more kind of hardcore fan.
Yeah. And like, I think it encompasses just about everything you need in there, because there's even a bit of silliness in the beginning of the match where they're just sort of back and forth, and Fonzie, like, come on. that's silliness. Anything else, guys? We're going to move on.
Yeah, nothing for me.
Nothing. All right, Jeff. I mean, did you spoil your one here just seconds ago? Nope. All right. What do you got, buddy?
No, I'm going to go with something different. So, I am going to go with a different company that we haven't said anything from yet. And I'm going to go with AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe versus Christopher Daniels.
Yeah, well, there's one.
Yep.
Yeah,
crossing that off my list.
Unbreakable 2005. So,
yeah. What do you? Anything on that? And you want to elaborate? No.
Exciting match. A lot of different things were involved in it. I mean, you get some great spots. You got some great storytelling throughout the match. Some hard hitting stuff. And it's different because it's TNA as well. So it's a different concept, with some different things that have to be done to make the matches work, So yeah, I'm going to say that one. I just think that'd be a really fun one to show.
Guys, anything? I agree with everything he just said there.
Yeah, I just want to. Yeah, it's kind of like a milestone, like where like the X division just kind of got elevated to a whole nother level with that match, or the TNA style where we've seen it a little bit with the Lucha style, but the TNA it just kind of it was kind of a milestone. There's a lot of matches that I have on my list that are milestones that made something, brought it to the next level. So I would put that in that category.
I think the only thing I could add is this is the match you show somebody that wants to know what a triple threat is. Like this is the key triple threat match. I think that's the pinnacle of it, because there was no of that blatant he's stepping aside so that these two can, and then they're going to come back in, they're going to switch partners. It was smooth, it was fluid. Yeah. All right, Jason?
Yeah, I'm going to go back old school again. I'm going to go with Tully Blanchard versus Magnum TA, Steel Cage match, I Quit match, Starrcade 1985. Dramatics, the real life intensity, I believe at the time, I think, didn't Tully's wife divorce him and left him for Magnum, or it was either right before that. But the real life dramatics that you felt, that if you could tell a wrestling fan, this might be a work, but God, this felt as real as possible. The violence, the blood, everything in that match, it's a classic.
Yeah, anything, guys?
It had that real fight feel to it because of that. Yeah, I'll agree with that part. So,
yeah, I've never seen that match, but I know stuff like that. Every now and then I watch some stuff from 80s, Mid-South, every now and then, something like that, though. But it definitely brought more realism, especially when kayfabe was really real.
Mm-hmm.
So those were definitely some really cool times. I can definitely appreciate looking back at some of those matches. But yeah, the realism, great stuff, storytelling, and then just how much the crowd was just into it. 100%.
Well, I mean, they can't make you believe everything is real, but they can make you believe they're real. And that was one of those. I have gone back and watched that. I was I can't remember which one of Conrad Thompson's podcasts I was listening to. It was either Arn or Tony Schiavone talking about it. Might have been JR. And I'm like, you know what? I got to see this. So I went back and I watched it. I'm like, wow, it holds up. Like you don't see through their work, and it's just there's no gaga to it. It's just we got a beef and we're going to settle it. And then, like Jason was saying, that real life twist to it. Once in a while, that happens. I mean, we saw it with Edge and Lita. We saw it with Savage and Liz, and got everybody else involved there. I mean, DDP and Kimberly. I mean, the Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle thing over Karen Angle. I guess Karen Jarrett now. It's if everybody can work and not, go, you know what, this is a good time to get this one last little bit of my issue out. It's magic. It's absolute magic. All right, Jamal, what's on your mind?
All right. So for me, let's go back to a little bit of a car crash here. This is a match, one of the few that I watched over years. I didn't see it live because I wasn't watching at the time because I was little, but I went back and watched it years later. And this was one of the matches that really made me feel uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, excuse my French, but I'm like, this shit needs to stop. It just needs to stop. Royal Rumble 1999, I Quit match. Mankind, The Rock.
Oh,
Never seen so many chair shots to the head in my life. I was like, okay, this needs to stop. Like, it's just, it made me uncomfortable at one point. But big fan of both of those guys growing up. But man, did they just go out there and they just left it all out there.
Yeah, I did see that live. That was one of the few pay-per-views that I saved up, and we had a big old party with it. And that was, everybody in the room was just begging for it to stop. I remember a couple people just got up and left. A couple of the girlfriends that were there were like, yeah, no, we don't understand. And that was it for them. They were like, yeah, they actually left the building. They left the house. Like, we're going to go do something else, 'cause this isn't over. And we're not watching any more of this shit. We're like, this is not how this goes. Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, and that, according to Mick's own book, it caused a lot of problems with him and The Rock going forward. And I mean, they would kind of get past it at one point because there was still plenty of the Rock and Sock connection to come. They hadn't done the This Is Your Life yet. But yeah, that was so cringy. And it just so happened that camera crew was there. And they had that camera on Foley's wife and kids for Beyond the Mat. And seeing the backstage bit on that, and then hearing how Mick was like, I was fine until I saw the footage of my kids being upset. Yeah, stomach turning. Jason, anything there?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to tell a casual fan, hey, you want to see some violence, put this match on. There's some definite violence in this one. But yeah, that was definitely uncomfortable to watch at the time. But yeah, I like the choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're sitting there listening to a bunch of us talk, and they hear the term "going into business for yourself," that's the one you show them. I mean, that's, yeah, by all accounts, I've never heard a different account saying that. Yeah, they meant to do 11 shots. No, they didn't. Yeah, Tony's nailing it. That's hard. It's with his kids afterwards. That's
horrible.
It's hard to tell your kids Daddy's just playing at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as a kid, I was like, I'm not buying it.
Yeah. It's like, he's fine. I want my ice cream when we're done. No. And we have Jeff back after a minor technical difficulty. Jeff, I don't know if you were hearing it, but we just went over the Royal Rumble, Rock versus Mankind. Any thoughts on that one?
Ooh, that was a good one. Where he was that the handcuff one?
Yep.
And all
Yeah,
the
that
chair
was a
shots
good
to the
one.
head.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one.
That's yeah, that was definitely something that why are all the infamous matches including Mankind? Like it's like, yeah,
I
you want to see
mean,
it? Yeah, right. Well, some guys have a style. Not all of it's high flying or being able to turn you into a pretzel.
He's
It's
the
like,
king of the death match.
yeah. I mean, he'll tell you it's Terry Funk, but I think that's a hell of an argument to have one day. All right, so I'm gonna bring up a a company that we haven't brought up yet. I guess it's not really haven't brought it up. It's a brand we haven't brought up yet. I'm gonna go back to NXT Takeover Dallas, the revival currently known as FTR versus American Alpha. Wow.
so
This
good.
is a time where NXT was absolutely on fire.
Fire.
100%.
Every second of every show was just jam-packed. The matches were bell to bell, top quality. They were match-wise outperforming anything on the main roster regularly. Granted, this is where we discuss different management styles, but we're going to stay out of that. But both American Alpha and FTR, the revival, they were kind of throw together tag teams to begin with, and neither really had a name for a while. It was Dash and Dawson, or it was Chad and oh god, I can't remember his name now. Jason Jordan.
Jason
Yeah.
Jordan,
Chad
yep.
Gable and Jason Jordan, and they eventually got their names, and they eventually fell into a gimmick, and they went out there and just burned the house down in this tag team showcase. Now, Jason Jordan is one of those tragic stories at these days where he's got the neck injury that he never recovered from. We do still see him on TV if you look real close when the officials have to come down and break up something on I think he's on SmackDown, but some WWE programming. You'll see him and Hurricane Helms in there, but Chad is now getting his due. FTR has, long established themselves as a top-notch tag team. But that's our first tag team match I think we've had on the list so far. Thoughts on this one, guys?
It's a good match.
Yeah, great
Very entertaining.
match. I'd have to rewatch it, but I definitely
I would
remember it
too.
was a great match.
Yeah, that's great. I remember that. Pay-per-view. That was WrestleMania weekend in Dallas. I think Finn and Samoa Joe were the main event.
Yep.
When I think Joe got cut open bad, and then that was also the night Shinsuke debuted against Sami Zayn.
Oh, that's right.
That's on my list. That's on my list.
Nice. Okay, so he's going to be getting some love here.
Damn you, Jamal.
Yeah, my bad.
No, good.
The words of our truth. My bad.
Oh, our truth. Oh, we're gonna have to talk about him one day in long form because that man is a national treasure.
Absolutely.
Ageless wonder too.
Yeah.
I mean, dude.
Yeah, just he looks the same today as he did when he first came in at Survivor Series 2000. It's ridiculous. And I mean, to quote When Harry Met Sally, I'll have what he's having. Please help me out. All right, Jeff, let's give us another one, buddy.
All right. Well, since we busted into tag teams, I have some too. I was just hadn't quite got there yet. But I'm going to do one probably everybody's going to have on the list, and that's the Dudley Boys versus Edge and Christian versus the Hardy Boys.
Which
From
one?
2000.
Right. Which one?
I'm going to go Mania 17, 2001, that version.
Yep. That was a good match. I mean, I was watching that from the cheap seats in Houston, and when Jeff tried to do that ladder walk thing, the whole building held their breath. Elaborate a little more for us, Jeff. Tell us what's going on in your head.
I just thought for the entertainment value, shock value, wow factor, this was just, you weren't going to hardly find something besides throwing Mankind off the cage or, some of these events that were going to be quite that memorable, and stuff like that. And same kind of concept. I didn't think you really needed, per se, the storyline to get the match and and get what's going on. So
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
goes with
and
our car crash lean.
yeah, I mean that show me a TLC that's not a car crash. But I
Yeah.
think this was TLC 2. This also included, it was
Mhm.
basically a 9-person match, really, because you had Spike, you had Rhino, and you had Lita coming down for their bits as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the whole building holding their breath at certain spots. Devon hanging from the belt thing,
Yeah.
um, and which is, when you go back and you listen to some of the stories from these guys, I don't want to say old timers, but then I'm going to have to do math and I'll prove myself wrong. Um, like Devon deathly scared of heights, apparently. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's yeah. Jamal, Jason, what are you thinking on this one?
I got to scratch that off as well. To me, to this day, I still think 17 was probably the best Mania top to bottom as far as star power, legends, and everything like that. Like, still very high up there for me. Great match. I
Mhm.
love a good car crash.
Yep. Jason, you just nodding along. We
Yeah,
pretty much
no,
got it.
it's on my list as well. Again, I love milestones. I love matches that bring a division to the next level,
Mhm.
and I can't really add much more than that. What you guys said.
And that's, now that you mention that, that's interesting because the year before at WrestleMania, it was those same 3 guys in a ladder match.
Mhm.
And
How
I
do you
guess
top it? And they did it.
well, I mean,
You're right.
they turned around and said, well, it's not really a ladder match because we got tables and we got chairs too, so fuck it, just
They'll see.
whatever. But the image from 16 with Edge and Christian on the tables holding up the belts between the 2 ladders was pretty rad, and I think that's a really good full circle moment because I mean the Edge and Christian and the Hardys had kind of established themselves in late '99. The Dudleys came in late '99, and a year later, or 18 months later, we have this match, and it's like, okay, the tag team division is here,
Mhm.
and we're gonna stay.
Mhm.
And they did. They just, until everybody started getting broken up, it was a wild tag team ride, akin to, I mean, like the mid '80s, where we had all those tag teams running around everywhere with the Road Warriors and the Midnights, and the WWE guys with the Bulldogs and the Hearts, and yeah, it's fantastic. All right, whose was that one? I've just blanked. My mind just went.
I just went,
That
so
was
it's
Jeff's. All right,
Jason.
so Jason, we're on Jason. That's where we're
Yep.
going.
Well, since we're starting on the tag team run, I will add a tag team match as well. I don't know how many of you have seen this, but I would highly recommend watching it if you haven't. It is from the AWA.
Hmm.
I think August of 1986. There was a great feud happening between Doug Summers and Playboy Buddy Rose versus the Midnight Rockers, and it all culminated into a wild brawl and juice fest. If you love that type of wrestling, I highly recommend going back and watch. It was on AWA TV, I think on ESPN. But man, just a wild brawl and just great dramatics and juice and God, awesome match.
And just for those that may be tuning in and aren't familiar with all of those names, could you tell us who the Midnight Rockers were? Just remind us.
Um, yeah, I think most people have heard of Shawn Michaels, but Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, the
Yep.
Midnight Rockers. I think they were the Rockers in WWF.
Mhm.
But yeah, just a great match.
Yeah, I mean, that's Hall of Fame caliber stuff. I know Buddy Rose's WWE run was not what you'd call super high profile, but we did get the blow away diet. I
Well,
mean,
I'm look. So again, I 1982, I believe, was the year he came in, and he had a great run with Bob Backlund when Bob Backlund was champ. They
mhm,
definitely pushed him big. I mean, this is before he put on a lot of weight.
yep.
I remember I saw him against Jimmy Snuka at a high school gym in Staten Island back in 1982. He is a great worker, very underrated. But he did have a big push back in 1982. Uh, this was obviously before that tag team match, but um, yeah, I mean, go do yourself a favor and go back and watch that match if you haven't.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm gonna have to go look that one up. I think I
Mhm.
saw it. I think I saw it on a WWE DVD years ago.
I
It
think
might
so too. I think
it
so.
might be on the Shawn Michaels multi-disc set that they
Yeah,
released several years ago.
might be.
Um, but
Ooh,
yeah,
I
I'm gonna
think I have that disc too.
That's what I'm
yeah
thinking as well.
Hmm.
yeah.
But I
So
would
I mean
definitely have to go back and watch it as well.
yeah, I mean that's I spent yesterday. I got a little inside baseball. I had a babysitting shift at work. I just had to be there to make sure the place didn't burn down while some contractors were doing that. So I sat there and I watched a bunch of wrestling and played video games. And I wish I had grabbed the Shawn Michaels disc. I really do. I had a bunch of stuff with me. I watched some ECW. I watched some Bret Hart. You know, went over to the internet on my computer station and did that. But good pull. AWA, I don't think is given their just due in this day and age.
It's not.
It's
Great
when they're
roster.
well, I mean, when you look at it, all the guys that came through there that were trained there, it's amazing. And it's just, I guess they just were the first major victim of Vince's expansion. I mean, there's lots of, no, I don't, I'm going to get a lot of heat for that one. I'm going to get a lot of people upset when they hear that. So they were, they were just about national as it was because they were pretty well all over the country. And Vince took that roster and just stripped it.
Well,
Like,
long story short, Vern had Hulk Hogan when Hulk Hogan made Rocky 3.
mhm.
Huge popularity. He was on the Tonight Show, and he had Hulk Hogan on his roster, and he blew it because he constantly pushed Nick Bockwinkel as a champ, and there were so many false finishes where Hogan would be announced as a champ, and then there would be a disqualification, and they put the belt back on
Mhm.
Bockwinkel. So if Vern had pulled the trigger and put the belt on Hogan, this would be a total different conversation.
Yeah, because you look at the undercard, you look at the guys that went through there: Scott Hall, Kurt Hennig. You know, we talked about the Rockers had gone through there. They had talent. It's just, I guess Vern. I think it's Vern didn't have the vision.
He did not.
I think Vince had the vision. Vern did not. All
Mhm.
right, let's move along here. Jamal, what do you got for us, buddy?
All right, so I'm follow along with the trend for once. I usually don't do that though, but let's stick with tag team wrestling here. Um, I was actually in the crowd for this one.
Mhm.
Going back to 2000, AEW, the first ever Revolution pay per view they did. I was front row. Young Bucks versus Kenny Omega, and Hangman Adam Page.
Good
One of
call.
the absolute best tag team matches I ever seen in my life. The timing, the precision, the chemistry, all four of them have for obvious reasons. It was just great. But even the story going into it with Hangman's, even though he's champion, he's losing his confidence. He feels like he's always like the fourth wheel of the elite and not being confident, which of course he ended up winning the big one eventually later on down the line
Mhm.
from Kenny, which was such a full circle moment later
Mhm.
on. But that match, unbelievable. And it was always funny enough. We always laughed. That was the final pay per view right before the world shut down. So it was kind of great way to go out in a way. But
Yep.
man, what a great match.
Yeah, that was not long after the second cruise
Yeah.
where Omega and Page had won those belts off of SCU.
Yep.
Yeah, the AEW tag division is so stacked, and the Bucks are the Bucks. I mean, what can you say? Jason, Jeff, any thoughts on this one?
Not a whole lot more to elaborate. It was a good match. I have a feeling you might hear the Young Bucks pop up again, maybe in this conversation.
Hmm, interesting. Spoilers.
Yep.
Jason, you just sort of smiling and nodding, or we just
Yeah, I have long-term memory, but my short-term memory is not the best. You'll find out when you get older. But yeah, now that you brought it up, Jamal, that great match, definitely worthy of the list.
yeah.
Sorry.
All right. I'm gonna pull a weird one out here from Monday Nitro, and this happened fairly regularly. this match. I think there's 5 or 6 of them if you look it up on the old Monday Nitro stuff. It was one of those ones that just seemed to throw together, as one of the horsemen continually ran into one of the NWO, Scott Norton and Chris Benoit. Anytime these guys hooked it up for the few minutes they would get in, the mid first hour of that show, when I wasn't super familiar with Benoit when I first saw this, I went, "Oh, a big guy going to squash a little guy." Okay. No, that's not how that worked. These were 2 hard-hitting, Japanese style, and for those of you that may be enjoying this because somebody wants you to enjoy wrestling, Japanese style is very hard-hitting. It's basically full contact strikes, more or less, as long as it's not going to, completely crush somebody's face, and not a lot of daylight. Everything hurts. They're not really trying to sell you on the pain. They're just trying not to inflict enough pain that the guy's not going to be able to feed his family and go to the match the next night. And these 2 guys is just what we can say what we want about Benoit, and we're not even going to get into it, but Norton, so underrated as a performer, and he just got lost in that NWO shuffle. In our NWO episode a few weeks back, we did include him in the main roster of the NWO, in that ultimate roster of 13, because he was that big badass. He was that enforcer. He was basically a Minnesotan Solo Sikoa, or Jacob Fatu now, since Solo's a little more out there. Guys, anybody remember this one or any of them?
I remember tangling them a couple times, but to actually be able to see matches and stuff, I'd have to go back and watch it. But I know both of them, and I know how hard hitting they are. So,
yeah,
I have not seen this one though, but anything Benoit does is always hard. One of the probably the most intense wrestler I've seen since I kind of grew up watching wrestling in that area. That's what kind of got me into wrestling. Like probably the most intense wrestler I've ever seen.
Can't fault that, Jason.
Yeah, I don't remember the match per se, but again, like Jamal said and Jeff said, I mean, anything with Benoit is a classic match, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to work harder to have a bad match with certain guys, and despite anything else that he's got going on in his legacy, Benoit was one of those guys. You actively have to go out of your way to have a bad match with this man.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, we're closing in on the hour, so we'll do one more each. Jeff, start us off.
Ooh, one more each. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, well then I'm going to go completely on a different off-the-wall one, and I'm going to go to showcase another style of wrestling. I'm going Brian Cage versus Taya, before she was Taya Valkyrie, on Lucha Underground, no disqualification match. This one, I just think for a intergender match like this, where they're actually allowed to do everything, I thought it was fucking awesome when I first saw it. When I was watching Lucha Underground, I thought it was highly entertaining. I could tell that, yes, it was physical and whatever else, but you could tell Brian protected her, but he went fucking hard on her because, she wanted to prove it, and she went out there and I thought she proved it. And I thought it was a fun, entertaining, hard-hitting match. So, and I thought it showcased that she could hang with a jacked up dude. We knew she was going to lose, but she at least made it somewhat of a suspended my disbelief on the fight.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I ask. Suspend my disbelief.
And Taya is a tough, badass Canadian born. We were born in the same city, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, don't fuck with Canadian women. Jason sees how I get beat up here all the time. What do you guys think about this? I saw first couple of seasons of Lucha Underground, and then they pulled it from Netflix. So I didn't get to that point. So I missed a lot of really good stuff.
I want to say this was like season 3, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly, but this was one that always stuck out. This and when Angelico jumped off the top of Dario Cueto's office.
Yeah,
were two of my top moments from Lucha Underground off the top of my head.
All right. I'm hoping that Lucha becomes available at some point again. It may be. I'm gonna have to do some research on that.
You got
now
to
that
pay
I've
for
back in
it.
my head. Well,
Got to pay for it.
I pay for a lot of things. I'm married.
That's
Boys,
fair.
what do you think about this? Lucha Underground, the intergender match.
Yeah, I used to get the El Rey Network. I used to watch Lucha Underground. I loved it. I thought it was different. The presentation was different. I think it then after like season 3 or 4, it went to a different network or something happened where I didn't watch it after that. But man, what a great show. And yeah, I mean, I remember the match. I'd have to go back and watch it to really analyze it. But yeah, some fantastic moments from Lucha Underground. Highly underrated.
Mhm.
Man,
Where I was introduced to Pentagon Junior.
Yep.
hmm
And Vampiro put him on the map.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, and then let's not forget Lucha Underground had a lot of future stars in there. Brian Cage, Vampiro apparently did a really good match at the end of one of the seasons, but Rey Mysterio's career was revitalized there. And if you look really, really closely, I believe El Generico and Prince Puma are on the same beach somewhere sunning. They look really, really close to Ricochet and Sami Zayn, though. So, I mean, I've never seen anybody in the same place. I'm just saying. I hear those two retired to a beach, and their doppelgangers are doing quite well. Jamal, you got some thoughts on the Lucha Underground, this intergender?
Lucha Underground was special. Man, that was a time. I believe I saw the first 2.5, almost 3 seasons. I didn't see all of it, but the first stuff I saw, like I got introduced to Prince Puma, who we already know who that is, but we'll remain nameless. EO Sky ran through there. First time I see her there. Pentagon Junior and Taya, like it was just special. It was just like a wrestling show produced like as a TV show. The backstage vignettes different. How they shot it above the ring was different. The crowd was always hot. Man, I wish they would have brought that back. That's why, Jeff, kudos to you, man. Lucha Underground was just so cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Great
you.
poll. Great poll. Lucha Underground, yeah, it didn't even occur to me. But there's a lot of good content in there, especially if you've listened to some interviews with guys like Ricochet and Prince Puma, guys that were there. Brian Cage and Ty Valkyrie have all said really good things. So I mean that's one of those shows. It was a special time and place.
It was the presentation that really brought it up to me because
Mhm.
it was different than everything else I was thinking of from these different, organizations. So,
Well, I mean, Eric Bischoff has long been on the record. You can be better than, worse than, or different than. And that's what Lucha Underground did.
mhm.
And it really showcased it. All right, Jason, give us your last recommendation here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say before I do, can we do a part 2? Because I have about 10 more matches.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I got a bunch here.
This has now sparked a bunch of stuff. Like my TNA mind is off over here, and there's a bunch of stuff in NXT I didn't get to. There's a bunch of AEW stuff I didn't get to.
Mhm.
I think we can do this. And ECW, AWA, yeah, absolutely. We can do a part 2. That's the best thing about these is we can do part 2s and we can mix it up a little bit more. We can have the same crew come back. Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, I'll just from my list, Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, Halloween
There it
Havoc,
is.
1996. Just
Mark it
again,
off.
You were going to do it.
putting Lucha. I love matches. Again, you put something on the map or you elevate it. Again, I mean, how can you say anything bad about two fabulous wrestlers like that going at it and just really, Lucha, boom, on the map from there. Just an incredible match.
Yeah, that was the full purple bodysuit. And I know for a fact because I looked at them yesterday. They weren't in the stuff I took with me, but it appears on both Eddie Guerrero DVDs from the WWE and both Rey Mysterio sets.
Mhm. It does.
And they get lots of credit for that match. Like there's a reason every industry insider, when they're asked about their favorite matches, goes back to this match. That's all there is to it. There's a reason for it. Guys, what are you thinking?
Yeah. There's a good hybrid style of showing that lucha, which is that slight mix of, you know, more of the American style wrestling. So yeah, couldn't go wrong.
Yeah, definitely a favorite of mine. I can go back and watch whenever, and it doesn't get old. Like absolute classic, absolute banger. Much respect to both of those men, man.
Yeah, I mean, what else can we say? Jamal, give us one more, buddy.
Yeah, I was going back and forth between two here, but this one I'm definitely going to say this match, one match, probably the only match that literally left me speechless after I watched it. Absolutely speechless. I was done. I was ready to walk out. I didn't need to see the rest of the card. I was done. I didn't need to see anything else at WWE, AEW. I'm like, match of the year, done. I'm leaving. I don't care. Done. The second Forbidden Door, 2023. Will by God Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. I was just done. I was like, I don't need to see not another damn thing from anything else for the rest of the year. Match of the year, I'm done. It's over. Like it's finished. It's done. Like I don't care. I'm wiping my hands clean. I'm walking away. But so good. I can go back and watch that anytime. And it's just I love both of those guys so much. Their chemistry to me is just top notch. It's hard to describe, but if I showed this to a fan for the first time and just check this out, just watch the first 15 minutes at least, and I guarantee you they probably wouldn't walk away. But I definitely love that match so much, and hell, that match right there was one of the reasons why I decided to go to the first All In London, because I was hoping that would be the rubber match. But now I'm hoping that we get this rubber match between those two in Texas for y'all in, because I'm going
y'all
to
in.
and I am so in it. I am praying to wrestling guys that's the rubber match. I need to be there for that, because those first two were just too good. That second one took it up a notch. I'm like, I have to be in the crowd for the third one. Where is it? I need to find it. I need to be there.
Yeah, you just tap in the vein and fix. I need that fix. I need how do you disagree, guys? What are you thinking on this one?
I mean, anytime those two wrestle, I mean, it's just, again, brings wrestling to another level. And that's what I really like about wrestling. Two workers that could pretty much, 5-star matches, any match they want to have. Very rare. We've talked about a few wrestlers, bro, that can do that. And man, you could watch those matches anytime, any place, anywhere, and always be entertained.
Yeah, I agree. There's not a whole lot to add to those. They're highly enjoyable matches, worth watch.
Yeah. There was a match, I can't remember if it was Omega or which one it was, where Will got dropped on a turnbuckle out of a suplex, and he got this massive bruise.
Was that Dynasty?
Yeah.
Maybe it was Dynasty. Yeah, I think it was.
Versus Danielson, I thought, wasn't it?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Because Rachel and I were there, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was in my living room watching it with our friend Sarah, and she's not a wrestling fan, loves the Cruise, not a wrestling fan. She couldn't turn away from this match. And when she saw that bruise popped up, she's got a background is an EMT teacher, was quite concerned for Will. Everybody was quite concerned for Will, because once in a while in these matches, and sometimes it's not even the car crash matches, something happens. Look at any opponent for Walter, and you're like, oh, those chops hit.
Yeah.
That's swelling. That's bad. That bruise is popped right up. Yeah, you can't fault it. It's Ospreay and Omega. They don't have, again, two guys. You got to work to have bad matches. I'm not the biggest Omega fan out there, but I will never fault his work ethic. I will never fault his skills. That is just a fantastic dude. Now, we're going to close this out. We're just a hair over an hour. I don't know what to pick because I got 5 or 6 of these. So Jason is correct. We are going to have to come back on this one. I mean, I'm looking at Undertaker matches. I'm looking at Bret Hart matches. I'm looking at Shawn Michaels matches. We haven't
even got into that yet.
Yeah. Bret's your guy, man. End it with a Bret one. Come on.
You want a Bret one?
Yeah.
I had an
You know what?
interesting one.
My favorite match of all time, I have the Funko Pop figure up there, is the WrestleMania 12 match. I wouldn't show that to a new fan because it's over an hour long, and that's a that you don't throw somebody in the deep end of the pool on their first day in swimsuit. So that I'm going to take that one off, even though it's a brilliant match. Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper, WrestleMania 8. This is what solidified Bret as being able to break out of the tag team division. I mean, it had been going on for a little while. We didn't get that. We don't hate each other. We hate each other split. That would ironically come a couple years later. Right from the interview, Roddy brought up the family, and Bret's like, "Don't talk about my family. You might be tight with us." And a lot of people don't know Roddy is not from Scotland. Roddy's a Winnipeg boy. And so he did start in that territory system with the Candelos, with the Tunnies. He was down in Oregon. He was over in Stampede. And Roddy being Roddy at that point, he was on his second run with the WWE. He had come back a couple years earlier. He was doing some commentary. He was doing some intermittent matches. And they burned that place to the ground. It was that sleeper match on the card. It seems like every year there's that one match on the card. Maybe not every year, but it started the tradition with Steamboat and Savage, which definitely deserves to be in this conversation as well. But there's that match on the undercard. A lot of the times back in the day, the Intercontinental title was involved in it. But Bret, that victory, because it was, I don't want to say he caught him with a sneaky one, but it was a unique finish. It wasn't somebody getting caught in a finish suddenly. It wasn't what we see these days where it's, I've hit you with my finisher 3 times, you've hit me with your finisher 3 times, we've traded finishers and all that. It was a very simple-ish counter that Roddy caught Bret in the sleeper hold. It looked like, well, they're not going to move Bret forward. Bret pushed off that top turnbuckle, rolled him backwards, stuck his ass up in the air. 1, 2, 3. And that's how he beat Austin at Survivor Series a few years later. And we see that move used periodically. And I think it is just a brilliant, brilliant move. I think a guy like Hook should be using that as a get out of jail free card, because he does use the red rum. It's like, oh, damn it, I got caught. It's not the small package. It's not the schoolboy. It was just that elevating moment of Bret deserves to be higher than used to be in a tag team. He wears pink. And that was the start of it. Next year, Bret goes from the IC match to dropping the world title. And then he won the world title the year after that. And that was really the kickoff of Bret's massive run as a single star. Guys, what are you thinking?
Yeah, moment in time again makes a wrestling match special. Piper didn't put anybody over, but wanted to put Bret Hart over that match. He wanted to make him. Blood involved, the storyline, the dramatics. His family involved. Just another great match.
Yeah, it was a match I did go back and watch, and I mean, Piper is more known, obviously, for his mic skills, though not necessarily his ring work. But that, like you said, like Bret is somebody you really have to try hard to not have a bad match with. I think that was Roddy's, in my opinion, the best Roddy Piper match I've seen personally. So, but yeah, highly respect Bret. So I will go back and watch some of his old stuff every now and then. Like anybody aspiring to be a wrestler. I know everybody's so gung-ho on the high flying, on the new stuff. It's like, go back and watch stuff from the 90s, 80s, 70s. What's old is new again. Throw some tricks out in the book. See some of these moves like, oh, man, I don't think nobody's done this move these days. Or, let's bring this back. Let's add this in. Like go back and watch that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, us older guys, we remember these things. So we're like, oh, yeah, no, and Bret used that. And then we got to do the math. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, there's nobody in this section of the audience that remembers these. Like wrestling 30 years ago was, 1994. Bret had already been world champion. And when you look at a lot of these crowds, it's supposed to be kids, but there's guys like us that are older. I mean, Jamal, you're much younger than the rest of us. I mean, I'm pushing 50. Jason's in his mid 70s.
Young 70s.
Jeff's two-toned, as we can see with his beard and his haircut. So I'm not going to throw his age out there, but I mean,
Oh, it's all right.
We look back, and even stuff like the TLC 2, the WrestleMania 17s, the WrestleMania 18s, those were a long time ago. I saw something that made me sick to my stomach the other day. It's like WrestleMania 41 is closer than WrestleMania 17. I had to go sit down. I was looking for an oxygen mask. Like, I was like, no. Yeah. So I think we got a great list here, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to highly encourage everybody to check this out. I will get the list published on the show page, and I will share it around to the At the End Studios page as well. So like, subscribe, listen, comment, and we will be back here. I don't know. I gotta sort out my holiday schedule here and figure this out. I'd like to start doing these every week instead of every other week. So if you're listening and you would like to join the panel one day, drop me a line at the End Studios Facebook page or the Cheap Seat Booking Facebook page, or if you happen to know me, just slide into my DMs. I don't get mad at that sort of thing. Just slide on in, and we will come back with some more interesting stuff down the road. I have a giant list of things to talk about, and we would like your input as well. So join the comments, get your name in the hat, come and chat with us. We're good dudes, and maybe I can get some equipment across the border. We might have a live opportunity in about 48 days. Just saying. But, I'm not messing with Canadian customs and U.S. customs on that one, so we'll see how that turns out. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me once again. This has been Jamal, Jason, and Jeff on Cheap Seat Booking. And remember out there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it doesn't matter what company you like. It doesn't matter what style you like. It doesn't matter what wrestlers you like. The only thing that matters is it's all pro wrestling.
Pro wrestling, baby.
Exactly.
Thanks for having me.